It just gives us the unique opportunity to solve the sustainability problem by ourselves in the next 45 minutes. So I'm taking suggestions. No, seriously, we might as well, unless you need to go, we might as well have some dialogue. So let's get those microphones and let's just talk. You can either pretend I'm Neil or
I don't think you can restore a fish pond without permits from the department. So they're the ones who control it, but nobody this seems to be growing any fish in it. So they restore them and they're just sitting there. So, you know, I don't know. It's just a thought. We've got a lot of fish ponds.
somebody in this room knows something about this. Give that man behind you the microphone and then give that other man next to you the microphone.
Hi, I'm learning more than I knew a year ago at this time about local ia, the traditional Hawaiian coastal fish ponds.
Farming, we have had a long time ago a nice version of that called the Maui egg. Really strange.
Take that one out of service.
Okay, how's that? So the Maui Egg Park up country up Olopio and Poiu Road, it's just so many nice farms up there, and that was land that was carved out and given, rented to smaller farmers, and it's full. It would be nice to have another one, and I think that's something that we could, it's very doable, it's not impossible. We happen to have snag lands that could be carved out now. And it needs a little infrastructure with it to make it work. You know, put in some machinery sheds, put in some processing, cold storage, so all the farmers can share some of that infrastructure. And I think that's out there, and that could be encouraged, and that would get a lot of small, innovative farmers on the land. The other thing that Representative Abercrombie has set up is, and Kelly's working on this, is to start taking the buffer zone lands around the military facilities and farming those for energy for the garrisons on Oahu and Kauai, Big Island. We don't have one here, but so another, you know, plenty of land not being used for anything, and it's just that idea of, okay, let's go farm it, and by the way, it'll be local farmers farming it. The government will provide the infrastructure to do that, tractors and equipment, the hard costs, and then there's a lot of farmers that will step up and actually do the farming of it. So some good stuff on I think that we can do.
It was billed as a part of our new Advocacy in Action series. We're going to have hopefully more speakers that help us become better advocates. So if anybody wants to speak on that this evening and make any suggestions or share any thoughts on any successes that they have had with any particular projects. We have many things. We'd like to see a lot more renewable energy. We'd like to see a lot more food grown. We'd like to see more support for community gardens. So I was hoping that Neil was going to give us more information about that, and since he had to leave, we got a great room full of people here. If anybody wants to share any of their thoughts on how they think the best way to advocate for things is, please feel free to take a microphone and speak to us for a couple of minutes. Or just ask any other questions you have. There's a man.
In a couple of weeks and go see their restoration efforts. Walter Reddy Jr. has done a lot of restoration efforts. Here on Maui, Joylyn Payman at Ko'i'e'ie Fish Pond is putting that back together. But what I have been spending a good deal of research time on is what is the 21st century version of aquaculture, and that's open ocean aquaculture, which to me is a lot more like feedlots on the land, only it's putting a feedlot out in our ocean, and then assuming that the ocean's tides and currents are going to take away all the waste. Well, it hasn't worked so well in British Columbia with salmon, or in Chile with salmon, or in other places around the world. There's a lot of disease, a lot of parasites, and what I found with talking with people who are Hawaiian cultural practitioners, a gentleman from Oahu named Mike Kumu Ha'oha Lee, just amazed me with his knowledge of how his family 4 generations ago operated the He'ia fish pond on the north shore of Oahu. And he says it's time for these old secrets to come out. He said you won't find these things in Fish Museum, you won't find them in UH, but they had developed such integrated ecological practices with the coastal fish ponds that they really understood every element that was a part of it. And it's not just putting one kind of fish in and feeding them pellet feed and thinking that everything's going to be okay. So, you know, from what I can see, we have kind of misplaced our resources. We put a lot of government grants and funding and tax credits into this open ocean aquaculture that's had problems elsewhere, and we're using Hawaiian waters as a testing ground because no other state in the union allows fish pens in their state waters. I think there's a lot of promise in restoration of local IA because one of the clearest differences is that these were systems that took a community to put it together. It literally had people passing rocks hand to hand, hundreds, if not thousands of people from areas of the island, because some of these fish ponds are constructed with rocks that are from another geological part of the island. So it's indicative of understanding the natural elements around them and not trying to manipulate them, but work with them. So I think there's great promise there, and I'd like to see a lot more state and federal tax credits supporting the communities that want to restore what was once a very robust food production system.
Thanks, Rob.